Today we are doing a video all about how to prepare for your trip to Mexico for Deja Voom. Really, this applies to kind of any traveling. If you don't know, I have actually done a decent amount of traveling in my life. I studied abroad in Australia. I've done backpacking trips in Asia and things like that. There's definitely a point in time where I really wanted to have a travel YouTube channel. So it's really cool for me to be able to use my knowledge about traveling and my experience traveling internationally and help you guys prepare for this festival, my other love. So without further ado, let's get into the video so I can help you guys prepare for your first trip abroad. I know that a lot of people might not have traveled abroad before and are looking for help. I know a lot of you traveled abroad for your first times if you went to Deja Voom last year. Either way, hopefully there will be some solid tips in here for you guys. At this point, you guys all probably have your flights, but if not, you definitely need to get on that ASAP. At this point, the longer you wait, just the more expensive it's gonna be. The flights typically skyrocket like 3 weeks out from the event. That's kind of like the deadline where you're kind of effed if you don't have a flight at that point. And if you don't already have a passport, you do need a passport if you are flying in. I believe you can just get one of those $30 cards to get you into Canada or Mexico if you're planning on driving, but I'm assuming that 99% of people are flying, so definitely get on that passport. If you don't have it at this point, not all hope is lost because you can pay to expedite it. When I got my passport for the first time, I waited a little bit too long, so I went into the embassy in Boston and they expedited it. I paid an extra $200 or something to get my passport in 3 weeks. I've even heard about situations where you can go into the embassy and get your passport next day, but I definitely would not rely on that. I don't have experience doing that. I've only heard of one person doing that, and it was in Chicago. I don't know if this is always an option that you can rely on, so definitely get on getting the passport if you have it. So if you don't know a ton about flying internationally, pretty much you're just gonna get on your flight as normal in America, and when you arrive into Mexico, whether you have a layover or you're getting straight to Cancun, the first time you touch down in Mexico, they're gonna ask you to fill out a customs form. I feel like this can be kind of confusing. I personally always bring a pen onto my international travel flights so I can fill this out immediately. They give it to you kind of as the flight is winding down and you're about to land, and you kind of have to claim things that you've brought on the flight. My experience, you don't really have to worry about it. Typically, if you're not bringing in anything super expensive, you don't really have to worry about claiming all the stuff in your bag. They just ask you a random series of questions about you and what you're bringing into the country and what your intentions are when you arrive. Then when you get off the plane, you go through immigration or customs. There's always really easy signs to get through this. You will have to go through customs and immigration as soon as you land. As soon as you get off the plane, you have to wait in this extra line and you have to talk to an immigration officer or whatever. Sometimes you go into countries where it's super easy and they literally don't even barely look at you, and sometimes they'll ask you a decent amount of questions. I've never had a problem, but I've definitely had situations where I have to talk to them a little bit longer than other times. I've never been to Mexico, so I don't know what the situation is typically like in Mexico, but I'm assuming it's nothing too crazy. I always try to bring only a carry-on bag when I travel, especially if I have a layover, just in case the luggage gets lost or doesn't make it onto the next plane. So it's definitely something to think about, but a lot of us are probably traveling on the Mexican Airlines, where it's a lot cheaper to add on baggage. So I don't know, I might end up packing a full-blown suitcase, but always make sure that you check out the dimensions of what is allowed for whatever baggage you have purchased, whether that be a carry-on or a checked bag. Something that I learned the hard way is when you travel internationally, the standards for what you're allowed to bring on a carry-on or how much a carry-on can weigh and things like that changes from country to country. In America, they typically don't weigh your carry-on at all and you're allowed a little bit of bigger ones. But in other countries, a lot of airfare does not include a carry-on at all. You're only allowed a tiny bag, a purse-sized bag, not even a backpack. So definitely make sure to check into that before you arrive. It's just a big mess. Check what size your bags are allowed to be. Make sure they don't weigh too much, because that's just something you don't want to deal with, and it's going to add on a lot of extra money if you didn't prepare for that in time and they end up charging you. Next, make sure that you've gone onto the dashboard for the Deja Voom CAD page. The main person on your room should have access to this, and make sure that you add on when your flights are, because if you added in your flights by the designated date, which I think was January 10th, you are guaranteed a ride from the airport airport directly to the hotel for free and you don't have to worry about it. I heard last year that even if you didn't sign up in time, there's like standby service and nobody had any problem. If you haven't put in your flight information yet, it's not all lost. Definitely just go put that in there. You'll probably be fine from what I heard about what happened last year. But if you don't end up getting on one of these shuttles, there's always other ways to get around. I would just make sure that you look into common scams and stuff when you go to Mexico, and the rides that are typically the easiest for you to get from the airport are going to be the ones that are the most expensive and where they're trying to take advantage of the fact that you're a tourist, take advantage of the fact that you're probably sketched out by a lot of the options, so they'll just charge you a ton. So from what I investigated about Cancun and in Mexico is that you should always negotiate a price for the taxi before you get in the car if there's no meter, because then that gets you into a situation where you drive 10 minutes and they end up charging you $100 and they say it's $100, you need to pay me. So if you negotiate the price before you get into the car, it prevents them from being able to take advantage of you in that way after their part of the service is complete, because at that point you don't really have a choice. But if you're really struggling, just connect to the Wi-Fi in the airport. There's always airport Wi-Fi, and you can just do like a quick little Google search about which ways to get into the city are going to be the most safe and the best option for you. Another tip is to exchange money before you get to Mexico. When I went to Asia, I was always really concerned about like phishing scams where I put my card into an ATM and it takes all my account information and then my cards get locked because there's fraud or something like that. Typically don't have to worry about that too much. My advice is when I go abroad, I never use ATMs that are just like out on the street or like in convenience stores or things like that. I try to take money with me there, and then if I need to, I'll try to get money out at an official place, maybe at the airport where things are more secure. There's always going to be larger fees at the airport, but in my opinion, a couple extra dollars is always worth that measure of safety. If you only bring one card and your card gets locked for fraud, like that's just never good. That also reminds me, warn your bank that you are traveling abroad so they don't lock your card saying that someone stole it when it's actually just you traveling to Mexico. You can do that a lot of times through apps and things like that. And I also, when I'm in the country, try to take out large amounts of money at the same time so I can avoid paying the fee multiple times. I pretty much always will take out as much as they will let me, which typically is about like a couple $100s. And then once I get the money, I always store it in different locations. I will never just put it all in one wallet. Part of it in my purse, I'll put part of it in a locked part of my suitcase, another part of it in another part of my suitcase. That way if someone's rummaging through my stuff, or worst case scenario, someone tries to steal my purse, they don't have all of my cash. Like when I was in Asia, a little boy tried to steal my bag while I was on a motorbike at a red light. He came up to me because I was very clearly not from there. I'm white. I'm in Asia, I'm not Asian. It literally was like, give me all of your money. And that was like the one time where I started to feel more comfortable, because it had been like weeks that I was in Asia at that point. So I was like, you know what, I haven't had any sketchy issues, and I ended up being able to keep my bag and he didn't end up stealing anything from me. But it was a really scary moment where I was like, I just got here today, I just left the airport and took out the max amount of money I could from the ATM. This little kid's about to get like $200 to $300 from me, like when I could have just separated out my cash. So definitely be cautious of things like that. But kind of circling back, I was going to the weekend with a solid amount of the currency of the place I'm going, so you can order this ahead of time from your bank, which will always have like the cheapest fees if you go through your bank, but that takes a little bit more planning. What I usually do is just go into the mall and go to one of the currency converters, or you can even really do it at the airport at those currency exchange places. What I've done in the past is just take out as much as I think I'll need. All of these places will charge you like a fee for doing the business. If you bring your receipt back to prove that you have already used them at the beginning of your trip and are just trying to exchange your currency back, they waive the fee on the way back. Not every place is like that. At the mall in Massachusetts that I always went to, they always allowed me to do that, so definitely look into little deals like that that will help save you money, because they're kind of charging you twice by doing a service fee, and then also you lose a little bit of money for every dollar that you exchange. Another important thing is to be as considerate as possible that you are in somebody else's home city that's like when people come to America, people get really frustrated that they don't know English. Most other countries really value and encourage people to learn other languages to a whole other extent that Americans just completely ignore. Like, they're learning English from when they're toddlers. Americans automatically come off as really arrogant and like very self-centered because most of us don't know another language to that extent. So it's really important to show that you're putting in that effort to know a little bit of Spanish by learning basic phrases like, hi, how are you? How do you say blank? So you can just say, ¿Cómo se dice food? ¿Cómo se dice beer? If they know that you're putting in those efforts to say thank you, you're welcome, hi, hello, can you help me with this? You only really need like 5 basic phrases to show that you're not being completely arrogant, and that will bring you a long way when you need help. Since we are taking over the whole resort, I don't think it's as relevant like when you're on the resort, but it still would make us look as a community like we're just thoughtful, caring people. So I encourage you to do that at the resort, and then especially when you're off the resort. Another good thing for you to understand is the tipping expectations. I've never actually stayed in an all-inclusive resort before, so I'm not an expert in that. It is always important to know, especially if you've never traveled before, there's a lot of super basic courtesy things that are only American courtesies and are not courtesies on a global level. It's important to make sure you're thinking about things that we don't normally think about as Americans, and to make sure that you're saving yourself money and time and stuff with certain things that we do in America that are not expected in other places. So for example, in America, you'll typically will give 15 to 20% tip for a server at a restaurant, whereas in Mexico you're more than okay tipping 10 to 15%. In the taxi, you are actually not expected to tip at all, whereas in America you can tip, so that's another place to save some money. In Mexico, I read online that you are expected to tip 10 to 20 pesos per drink, which is about 50 cents to $1 for every drink, which I'm assuming in all-inclusive resorts you're still kind of supposed to tip. Again, not an expert on all-inclusive because I've never done this before, but. And then for bellboys and bag help, you're also expected to do that 10 to 20 pesos, aka 50 cents to $1. Kind of circling back around to the money thing, never keep like all your valuables in one like small bag, because it's really easy for someone to just walk out of your room with that bag, whether it be someone in our community or a maid or really anybody. Just try to keep all of your stuff separate. Use locks where it's possible. I always bring a lock on vacation so I can lock up my bag, because you just really never know, especially when you're traveling into a country where people are not as wealthy as people are in America overall. And just in general, try to look up as much as you can about common scams, because there's some stuff that you don't have to worry about as much as you think. Like, I know a lot of people go to Mexico and think like you walk off the resort and you're like gonna get shot, kidnapped, and held for ransom, which is just not the case. A lot of people think that about Asia, and I really never had actual scary experiences besides that one little kid asked me for my money and me saying no 3 times and then him just ending up walking away. Definitely be open to having fun and enjoying the culture, but also don't be walking around like with a target on your back. It is going to be obvious that you're a tourist just because we are going to be in a tourist area. And then if you're also not Hispanic, that also puts a walking target on your back there, because then they know that you're probably not from this area. My biggest piece of advice though is to enjoy yourself. Just be aware of your surroundings and get out there. Don't let what people say about Mexico keep you from being leave the resort. Experiencing other people's cultures is so important in my opinion, and leaving and not just seeing the touristy stuff like Senor Frogs, like trying your best to go have a real authentic Mexican meal, talk to actual Mexican people that live there year round and are not just trying to haggle for you. Have real conversations with them if possible, and try to do what they do on a daily basis. My friends are going to Tulum. It's still a touristy area, but not to the extent that Cancun is, so we are hoping to get more of that Mexican experience in Tulum the weekend before, and then when we come to the resort on Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to try to concentrate on leaving the resort and seeing Cancun and leaving the actual hotel area. So like I said, always have fun and go out to go to experience that stuff, but be careful of common scams and stuff. A couple other closing notes is, when you're shopping in touristy places, make sure to keep an eye on whether places have price tags or not if you want to go shopping. If things have price tags, don't try to haggle with them. It's definitely considered rude, but if there's no price tags, do not be afraid to try to haggle. Go way lower than you think. So you ask, how much is this purse? And they say $10, and you're willing to pay 7, don't say 7. Still probably be able to get you to pay 9. Say you want to pay 4 or 5 and try to get there somewhere in between. But again, only do this if prices are not listed. But also don't let them take advantage of you, because they're throwing out a number way higher because they're expecting you to haggle. When you're leaving the resort, a great tool for you to use is to be able to use Google Maps. You can actually go onto Google Maps when you have Wi-Fi or data at home or at the resort and download certain areas of the map so you can use the Google Maps offline when you don't have service. Which reminds me, always turn off data and all that stuff so you're not roaming and getting random charges. Just like put your phone on airplane mode and then use Wi-Fi when you can get it. But there's always little cheats like being able to download Google Maps and stuff to be able to get around when you're leaving the resort. I also heard online to make sure that you're being really considerate and stuff when you're out, because especially in Cancun, it's known as a party area and we're going to be there during spring break time. So cops are on the lookout for people that are very obviously American, or at least not Mexican. They will really just be on the lookout for you acting foolish in any sort of way, and they will take advantage and jump on that. Even if you're not actually really being super out of line, they will find a way to make it seem like you're being out of line. If there's anything for them to run with, they will take it, and then they can use that as a way to bribe you. Be like, hey, we could arrest you, but instead you're gonna give me $100, and then we're both just gonna walk away. So make sure when you're out and about, especially if you've been drinking and are leaving the resort to go to the clubs around Cancun, I would just make sure to be on your best behavior, not drawing a lot of attention to yourself. Hopefully this video made sense and wasn't too rambly. I freaking love traveling, so I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see Mexico. I've just been dying to go to Mexico for the longest time and haven't had the chance. My 19-year-old self really wanted to go on spring break, and I never ended up fulfilling that dream. So this is like my adult woke version of being able to fulfill that dream. So I'm so excited for that aspect. I'm so excited to feel like I've gone traveling again. I truly haven't gone on a legitimate trip in like 2 years, just because I use all my vacation days to go to festivals. So I am more than ready to experience a new place and leave the country. I just need this for my soul. Hopefully this helped you guys and it encourages you guys to actually leave a resort, because some of the stuff even my own friends have been saying about being so scared about leaving the resort because Mexico like isn't safe, when in reality America is just as unsafe, just in different ways. It's just a big mess. I just really hope that you guys all choose to leave the resort, and even if you don't, fully have fun in Mexico. We are about to kill it. I cannot believe that it's almost here. It literally flew by. I upload tons of videos all about festivals. I do vlogs, tips and advice, and all the fun stuff in between while I'm waiting to go to my next festival. So if you want to join along, please hit subscribe, and you can hit the bell if you want to be notified every single time I upload. Deja Voom and Tulum vlogs are 100% coming at some point. If you want to be notified about all my daily stuff, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. That is all linked down below. I will see you in my next video. Bye!